NASCAR is a sport of change. If there's one track that's quite familiar with change, it's Atlanta Motor Speedway. The track was reconfigured in 1997. The date for race weekend has moved several times in the last few years. The debate as to whether or not one of the oldest surfaces in the sport should be repaved still rages. But after this spring's race, Atlanta Motor Speedway and Speedway Motorsports will face its biggest change in 25 years: a new track president.
You're the longest tenured employee at Speedway Motorsports, other than Burton Smith, the owner, of course. What's kept you in this sport for so long?
Well, I think the same reason I got into the business is the same reason I've stayed a part of it for 44 seasons, and that is it's not like work. It's a genuine passion that I have. It's something I love. Still today, I wake up in the morning, I can't wait to get to work and see what the day's going to bring. And I love racing. I've always loved it. I love this company, and I love Atlanta Motor Speedway. And so it's very easy to get up and come to work and be motivated to do a good job.
And why do you feel that now is the right time to retire after working as track president at Atlanta Motor Speedway for 25 years?
Well, I just turned 65, and I guess that's kind of the age a lot of people start thinking about retirement. If I were just going to walk away from the sport and not be around it and see my friends, that'd be very difficult to make this decision. But I'm going to stop working every day, 5 days a week. I'm going to still do a little project work for the company and stay involved a little bit. But it's just time we've got a great team of young people here that are very smart, very intelligent, and are already doing a great job. And it's time to let them have some of the fun I've had all these years. And my job now will be to sit back and watch and encourage them and cheer them along, and come to a race and enjoy actually watching a race instead of being working the whole time it's going on here.
And then during your time here as track president, how have you been able to take advantage of the platform that Atlanta Motor Speedway has provided you?
Well, that's a great question. It is a great opportunity. It's not the easiest market on the NASCAR circuit to work in. There's a lot of competition in Atlanta. And probably one of the things I've learned through all my years here is just to persevere, to not let anything get in your way, and stay focused on what the job at hand is. Probably haven't had all the success I would like to have had along the way, but maybe that's made the challenge greater. I think, again, I think one of the joys I've gotten out of this business is to see so many people come into the business, like the business, and continue their careers through it. A great example of that is Brandon Hutchison, who's our Executive Vice President and General Manager. Started here as a college intern, and now he's the guy who's going to take this speedway forward and run it in the years to come. And couldn't be more proud of him, but not only him, so many others that we watched come along, and just to maybe be a little small part of that's been fun.
And then kind of going along with that, we've also, I'm sure you've been able to watch many drivers through Thursday Thunder and other like advanced events here, kind of like find their fame starting racing here. So can you kind of talk about the opportunity that Atlanta Motor Speedway has been able to provide young drivers to come here and be able to like build their career?
Well, it's something we're extremely proud of here at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Almost 100 drivers have raced in our Legend program here at Atlanta Motor Speedway and gone on to run either the Indianapolis 500 or one of the 3 touring series of NASCAR. Yeah, we're really proud of that. Probably the most proud I am is to see these people come in as kids. We saw drivers like Joey Logano and Chase Elliott, some of those come in at age 8 or 9, and actually watch them grow up here, and then watch them go on to higher levels of racing and be successful and become NASCAR champions. And you're really proud of that, but I still remember Chase Elliott as the kid down in the trailer eating M&Ms who didn't want to go to practice because he hadn't finished his bag of M&Ms yet. Those are fond memories. The Legend program is something all of us here at the Speedway really enjoy. I actually got to race in it myself and had tremendous fun doing that. But just to see all these guys, I find myself now when the starting lineup is introduced for a NASCAR race, I go down the lineup and see and count how many of those guys had raced here in our program. And now just about for every race, it's quite a few.
Can you talk more about like the impact that Atlanta Motor Speedway has on the community?
Well, that's something that's important to us. Our community supports the Speedway and our activities. So I just feel like it's always been an obligation for us to pay our community back. We try to stay very involved with our local Chamber of Commerce, with various charities. We formed many years ago the Speedway Children's Charity Organization, and through that we've been able to help many children's causes, many children, help a lot of small charities as well as large charities really do more things, more programs that help people in need in our community. I'm proud of that. And then we're actively involved. I don't think you can be an island, and no matter how large you are. We may be the biggest speedway in Georgia, but that doesn't mean we can just sit over here and not be totally immersed in our community. And not only is it fun and you meet great people and friends, but they're there to support us when we need help too. And it's been a real winning combination, I guess, for both of us. But something that my tenure here, I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
And what do you think that the draw is to the track that like brings the community in? And why do you think people should come experience that?
Well, Atlanta Motor Speedway, number one, is one of the old original historical tracks on the NASCAR circuit. As a matter of fact, we hold the record. There have been more 500-mile racing events here at Atlanta Motor Speedway than any track in the country. I guess that means we're old, but I think it also means it's something people like to go and attend and be a part of. It's a track that year in and year out has produced some of the closest finishes in NASCAR. Our track surface is worn out, so drivers can drive from the bottom yellow stripe all the way up to the wall, and they have fun doing it, and the fans have fun watching it. But we also work really hard to deliver great customer service. We are lucky that while our full-time staff is only about 1% of the people who will be working on an event weekend, the people who come in and help us all seem to have great fun being here and being part of the weekend. And we try to really roll out great Southern hospitality to our visitors who come from all over the United States.
And then looking back on your time here, what were some of the key ways that Atlanta Motor Speedway has been able to help out the community besides, bringing racing to the fans?
Well, we worked with the local Chamber of Commerce with some of their initiatives. I've worked with the Boy Scouts of America and helped them through some of their fundraising activities, actually led one of those campaigns. We're continuously working with some of the smaller charities in the community and their efforts and some of the work they do. But, I think the biggest thing is there's probably no big thing we've done. We've just been there when we've been needed. And if it's something as small as loaning some cones for an event they need, or a small grandstand or something of that nature, we're always there to do that because our community's there for us. Sometimes you can have more impact doing a number of small things than any one thing, and that's probably more like what we've done through the years than any one big singular event.
Right, just like being involved personally.
Sure. It's number one, we enjoy doing it, as I said, and number two, I feel like it's an obligation. And the other thing is, anytime people do something to help others, they get more out of it than the people they help, and in the long run, it all comes back to you 10 times over. So it's been something that's been fun. It's not been a burden to do. It's been something we've really enjoyed.
Ed Clark was introduced to racing by his uncle, Barry Ferguson, and attended his first race when he was 8 years old. While at Virginia Tech, he wrote a Sunday racing column and covered races for a local newspaper in Blacksburg, Virginia. Clark got his start in Atlanta in 1992, taking over as general manager. Throughout his tenure at Atlanta Motor Speedway, he has won the 2017 Promoter of the Year for Speedway Motorsports and received the 2019 O. Bruton Smith Award for his enthusiasm, drive, vision, and heart for helping others.
I had a favorite uncle. His name was Barry Ferguson, and he was a big NASCAR fan. And even when I was a kid riding a tricycle, he would call me Pancho, which was his favorite driver, Marvin Panch's nickname. So I kind of got into it at that level. I went to my first race when I was 8 years old and immediately was hooked. After the race, my dad and my uncle took me down and I got autographs from drivers. I still have the souvenir program with those driver autographs, some of whom are in the Hall of Fame now. And it just reached out and grabbed me, and it was something that I knew I loved and wanted to be more a part of, and that's how I became interested in it.
And can you talk about your start getting involved, like working in the industry?
When I was in high school, I worked at a little biweekly newspaper after school, really just putting the paper together and taking it to the post office. And I went in one day and asked the sports editor if he would care if I started covering some races there in Virginia at Richmond and Martinsville, and he reluctantly kind of agreed to let me go try it, and I started there. And when I went to college at Virginia Tech, I wrote a Sunday racing column and covered races for a little paper there in Blacksburg, Virginia. And through that, met a lot of people in the business, and actually got an opportunity to start at Bristol Motor Speedway and started my career about 6 weeks before I actually graduated from college.
Oh, that's impressive. And how did you end up moving to this area and getting involved with Atlanta?
Well, I had worked at Bristol and Nashville, and in 1981 I went to Charlotte Motor Speedway and went to work for our parent company, Speedway Motorsports. And in 1990 we bought Atlanta Motor Speedway, and in 1992 they asked me to come down and be the general manager here. So I moved to Atlanta, I guess it was July of 1992. And have been here ever since. 28 seasons of fun, and a lot of stories and a lot of adventures through those years.
And then we're from Starrs Mill, so most of us live in Peachtree City, and then we know you live in Peachtree City too, and your kids actually graduated from our rival school, McIntosh. So can you talk about what it's like living in Peachtree City and kind of raising your family there and why you like it there?
Well, it's a great place, like you said, to raise families. I was working a lot, I was gone a lot, but I recall coming home and my wife and son and daughter would be on the golf cart and going down the cart path, and all the parks along the way and things for kids to do. Once we came here and started looking for a place to live and saw Peachtree City, that was just it for us. We've lived in the same home for 28 years. We're right on Lake Peachtree there. We love where we are, and got a lot of friends there, and it's been truly a wonderful thing to live in Peachtree City. We've seen it change quite a bit. It's still a great community and has a lot more amenities than it did when we first moved there.
And what do you think is like just special about this area in general, like around the track and the kind of this community that's kept you here?
Well, being in the business I'm in, one thing I like about it is there's a lot of race fans here, and people that I meet people every day through my normal daily routine that came to races here in the early 60s when the Speedway was first started, that tell me a lot about the history of the track that I don't know. But I think Atlanta Motor Speedway's long been appreciated and supported by people in this region and across the whole state. We are Georgia's NASCAR track, so really people from all areas of Georgia are proud of Atlanta Motor Speedway and proud this to call their home track. But so many people right here in our community grew up here, saw the Speedway in the early years, and have certainly appreciated the growth and development our company's bought since 1990 to make it a facility that's one of the standout facilities on the entire NASCAR circuit.
And then becoming track president, what was the first major decision you had to make?
The first major decision, well, my first race was actually sold out. And so we had to figure out how we were going to handle many things that we hadn't had to handle before, because it was by far the largest crowd we ever had. We had to find additional parking areas, shuttles for fans to get to their seats, things that we'd never experienced before. So it wasn't one thing, but it was all related to the fact that we had such a successful event. We had to plan accordingly when we'd never had that many people attend here at Atlanta Motor Speedway before. And between my boss, Bruton Smith, and myself, we somehow figured out the things we needed to do to wade through that, and made it a weekend that so many people still talk about today.
From grassroots racing in Virginia to covering the sport as a journalist, and now overseeing all track activities at Atlanta Motor Speedway for the last 25 years, Ed Clark has witnessed some of the sport's top moments.
And then you were talking about your first race here. It was Richard Petty's last race and then Jeff Gordon's first race. So what has it been like living through the iconic moments and looking back at some of the iconic races that you've been here for?
Well, I have special memories. That's probably my biggest, most special memory. Just the magnitude of the weekend. I think we had 5 or 6 drivers who mathematically could have won the championship that day. It was the last race of the season. Richard Petty was retiring. At the time, we didn't know what it meant that this was Jeff Gordon's first race, but Jeff went on to be a multi-time champion and a huge race winner in NASCAR. Bill Elliott and Alan Kulwicki had a real battle for the championship, finished I think only 11 points apart for the championship. Bill won the race, but Alan won the championship and finished second. Got all these storylines going on. We had a Victory Lane celebration, we had a championship celebration, and then we had a Richard Petty celebration at the end of the race, and to juggle all that was quite a bit, but it made the day very memorable.
Can you talk a little bit more about some other iconic races over the years, like the race that Harvick won here after Earnhardt's death?
That was a day that everybody who was here will remember. Dale had died at Daytona several weeks before. We came up with the idea that all the fans would raise 3 fingers. And we didn't know how well it would be accepted. Well, lo and behold, every person in the grandstand stood and held 3 fingers up, and we had Dale's number 3 painted in the grass. And to make the day even more special, Kevin Harvick, who replaced Dale in that car that Dale had won with here a year prior to that, came out and won the race in a photo finish with Jeff Gordon. And just an iconic moment that the fans cheered and cheered and cheered. I've never heard them cheer so loudly for 6-7 minutes. Harvick drove up and down the front straightaway. The crew was crying, everybody here. I think it was a big emotional release. That's just one of the moments I remember. Carl Edwards got his first win. He actually won the Saturday race and the Sunday race the year he got his first career win. We've had photo finishes. We've had first wins for drivers, many things like that stand out. And if you look back through the history of Atlanta Motor Speedway, we've been a track that the winners list is like a who's who. It's the major names, even some of the Indianapolis drivers like A.J. Foyt, Jim Hurtubise won here. It's truly been a place that it's been tough to win at. And if you've won here, you've accomplished a lot, and you've gone on a very exclusive list.
And then we were talking about some of the iconic races, but is there any memories that really stand out to you from your time here, in particular?
Well, one that I recall, Dale Earnhardt, the last time he won here, we had Colin Powell, General Colin Powell was here as a guest, and Dale really wanted to meet Colin Powell and got to the drivers' meeting early, and they shared some time together. Dale was in Victory Lane celebrating his win. Helicopter landed to take Mr. Powell and his family home, and he looked over and saw Dale, and he walked to Victory Lane, and I can still see the two of them with hands on each other's shoulders, looking face to face, talking and then giving each other a big hug before he left. And that was a special memory for me. But we've had many great grand marshals, you know, people like Arnold Palmer, who was always a hero of mine. Those have been some things that have made my career special.
And what would you say was your favorite race, like, to watch, maybe like competition-wise?
Boy, we had one shortly after we repaved the track back in the mid-90s that we had a restart with about 6 laps to go, and there were like 8 cars that you literally could lay a blanket over, and they were changing position for the lead every lap right down to the finish. That was one I recall where you just held your breath until the very last second of the very last lap. And that's the racing we always order for our events. We just don't always get it. But that was one I remember every fan here, even our staff members and the people who work here, were just on the edge of our seats watching that competition.
And NASCAR has obviously gone through like a lot of changes since you started working here. What would you say would be some of like the biggest changes that affected Atlanta Motor Speedway and kind of like affected your job?
Well, we've had a lot of rules package changes, and we traditionally have been one of the early races in the season, so we've got the first look at a lot of those changes. I think one of the biggest things, not only for us, but for all of racing in general, after we lost Adam Petty and Kenny Irwin and Dale Earnhardt, the universal use of the Hans device on the helmets that is a safety feature that limits how much a driver's neck can stretch in an accident, and safer seats. I'm proud to say that those advancements and the safer barriers that we now have on the walls to absorb the impact when cars hit them, that we've greatly reduced the injuries to drivers and fatalities in the sport and made it I'll never say it's a safe sport, but you can survive crashes a lot better. That safety development, I think, has, to me, been one of the greatest things I've seen to come along in a long time.
And then finally, with you retiring, what legacy do you want to leave not only on the track, but like on the sport?
I think I'd like to be remembered as just someone who loved the sport as much as the people who come here and attend events. That you know, I've maybe played a role in giving them a better day, something they plan and look forward to all year round. And you know, I love it. I want everybody who comes to Atlanta Motor Speedway, as our whole staff does, to genuinely have a fantastic time and to leave with enjoyable memories that they'll go home and tell other people about. And if we don't do that, we haven't done our job. But just that I've been a part of giving them great experiences. And the side on that for me is that I've enjoyed those things as much as they have. People don't realize that those of us who work our events here really enjoy the weekend as much as the fans who come and attend. We call it circus coming to town. And you work all year long on something, and the payoff is when you see it come. The color, the pageantry, the sensory experience, the people in the stands having a great time. They're here from all walks of life, from all around the country. But on that given day, they have a common interest, and they're having an enjoyable time. They may give each other a hard time because they pull for different drivers, but they're all here because they love and have a passion for this sport. And our job is to continue to give that to them, and hopefully I'll be remembered as someone that contributed somewhat to their enjoyment.
When the checkered flag flies after 500 miles of racing on March 15th, it will not only signify the end of a great race, it will also mark the end of the Ed Clark era of Atlanta Motor Speedway.